15 years old.
God.
And I walked in and I was completely hooked. Sat there 7 days a week and practiced 2 hours, 3 hours a day until the neighbors complained. I would make the mixtapes, go out and give them to the promoters, hope for a phone call. It was like a top 20 event. We did 5,200 people. It was a classic night. We go, baby, come save my club.
You played 13 hours this weekend?
I did.
Holy shit.
13 and a half. I started at 3 a.m. and I finished at 3:30 p.m. the next day. COVID was a big hit, During my years of DJing, I didn't know anything else.
Welcome back for another edition of Industry Talks Hospitality Podcast. I'm your host, Emi Guerra, and with me today, I have one of my very dear friends, somebody I look up to in the business, a true superstar in every fashion and way, my friend, Boris.
What's up, Emi? Glad to be here, buddy.
Oh, man.
Man, it's been many years.
Many years
together.
Boris, for those of you who know or don't know, is not only what I would consider as a world famous DJ, musician, but also a skilled and successful businessman and a dear friend. And I'm just going to dig right into it, Boris.
Let's do it.
Because your friends are going to know you, and the people that we know are going to see us. But you got into DJing. How did it happen? What was the purpose behind it? I'm sure it was a long time ago. Maybe we don't have to say exact years if you don't want to, but let's dig in, man.
So basically, I started off young, going to clubs. I had older friends that actually used to take me out. And
how old were you when that was?
15.
15 years old, going to clubs.
15. My friends were, I want to say, 18, 19. They were a little older. So they were kind of already experiencing the nightlife and going to certain places in New York, really.
This is New York.
This is New York we're talking about. So literally the first club, I was 15 years old, and it was the Tunnel.
The Tunnel.
The Tunnel. I was 15 years old.
God.
And I walked in, and I was completely hooked and mesmerized in the whole nightlife game. Like the DJing, the music, just the lighting. I still get kind of like, I'll remember that day like it was like yesterday. And, that was a long time ago. I could sit here and tell you the exact moment and this exact DJ and the exact track that was played when I walked into that club.
What was it?
It was Paid in Full, Eric B. and Rakim. Johnny Dynell was the DJ. Most probably don't know who he is. He was just a New York legend type of DJ, and he was the resident at the Tunnel back then. So I just remember, and I was just like in awe of the whole experience. Talking about 15 years old, walking into like one of the, hottest nightclubs in all of New York. I would say early 90s.
Early 90s.
Early 90s.
Yeah.
I would say probably, to be exact, it was actually late 80s. Let's just say that.
Really?
Yeah, it was late 80s. 88, 89.
89? I was in 5th grade.
Oh.
Well, no, listen, hey, so okay, so you walked in, you saw the vibe, you felt it, and you're like, wow, I love this.
So I was kind of hooked on the whole clubbing thing, and then from there on in, my friends used to take me with them when we used to go party on a weekly basis, whether it was the World, the Tunnel, Mars, Red Zone, and that's where kind of like the whole Red Zone Mars thing, was really where I got kind of like really into the whole DJ thing. So at Red Zone, for example, David Morales was the resident there. So I kind of used to go there at like, I was 16, 17 years old and just watch and just listen and just really got into the whole DJing aspect of nightlife. And I was just like, you know what? I want to be a DJ. And back then, if you tell someone you're a DJ, they're like, what do you want to do? Weddings or Sweet 16s? It's like, what's a DJ back then?
The DJs were hidden back then too. They weren't in the center of the dance floor.
You were either up or all the way in the corner, or you were kind of really away from the whole crowd experience, as opposed to today, of course, where you're on stage and the lighting and the whole glamour of it all. So back then, and literally, I just remember I used to watch him from the second floor all the time, weekly. We'd go there, and I just like kind of got to like see like, wow, vinyl being played and this. I was like, Okay. So then I went, and then I went to my mom, and I was just like, Ma, for my 16th birthday, can you get me turntables and speakers and a mixer? She's like, huh? What?
That's not what she had a plan for you.
She's like, wait, what? So sure enough, went down to Chinatown, got some turntables, mixer, some speakers, and sure enough, got, set up in my house and practiced for a good like year and a half, 3-4 hours a day, daily, just disturbing the neighbors and just kind of just going off with music and just, getting my record collection together and just kept getting to know
because you
the
had to
music.
buy records.
You had to buy records, back then. And, I'm 16 years old, and records back then were $11, $12. They weren't cheap. Vinyl wasn't cheap.
It's like $30 today.
Yeah. Oh my
It's like
God.
$30 a track if you think about it.
Yeah. So, so I would kind of save up, or I would just get, ask my mom for some money here and there, and then, get, 4 or 5 records at a time and build my collection and then practice. And then sure enough, I got a lucky break by going out once again, being in the scene, going out, I'm back. And by then at like 17, 18, I was going out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Tuesday in New York. Back then, I mean, there was always something going on, and the parties were like on fire, like really, really hot, whether it's, Red Zone Mars or The World or MK or Nell's. There was so many amazing nightclubs back then that you would just like every night you would go. China Club Monday nights, everything. There was so you just.
I've heard of a lot of these places.
Yeah,
I haven't
so they
been
were
to
all
them.
legendary nightclubs back in that era of like early 90s. So, I got to know a lot of people. I got to, party with some promoters. And then one day I just, I would actually go out and give mixtapes to promoters.
So you would make the mixtapes.
I would make the mixtapes, go out and give them to the promoters, and, just hold for a phone call. And one day that phone call came
No way.
from a promoter.
Who was the promoter?
It was Matthew. Can't recall his last name, but Matthew was his first. And he's like, hey, listen, I'm starting a new party. And it's at this place called Tilt. And that was the first nightclub I was at. It was at 179 Varick. And sure enough,
You were 18 years old?
just turned 18.
What, to party, you had to be 18 or you had to be 21?
21. Couldn't even get in. Couldn't even drink. Couldn't even get in.
Oh my God. Similar story. I was 19 years old. I was working the door at a place and it was 25 and older for guys.
Yeah.
And I was 19 telling 24-year-old dudes you can't come in. I felt like, anyways, sorry. I didn't mean to say it's not about me.
No.
But I had to, it kind of feels like, you're ahead of your time. You're providing the music for people who have taste who are older than you.
And again, there's a handful of jocks in that era, and nobody's really that big. Morales wasn't big. Nobody was really big back then. Everyone was just, DJing at nightclubs. And it was not like oh my God, so-and-so is playing, I gotta go. No, it's like you're going for the nightclub experience and the party, and the DJ's just the DJ, great. It's whoever it is, whatever. So at that point, I got the break, and I became the resident there for a year and a half, and ultimately it became one of the hottest parties in all of New York.
Really? Tilt.
Tilt.
Actually, I like the name. I'm not gonna lie.
So that was from 91 to 93.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I was the resident there. And mind you, I wasn't just playing one genre of music. I would go from house, from hip hop to salsa,
What?
to reggae,
No.
everything. It was
No.
oh yeah, everything. I would do sets of everything. So it was ultimately, I was the can I put this, the mashup guy
Okay.
before the
Mashup.
whole open format thing really was open format in New York.
In New York.
In New
Okay.
York, because you had other guys, but they would concentrate on hip hop, or they would concentrate on a certain genre of music, so I was the only guy that was playing everything from across the board. Disco, I'd play a house track, and then go for, play a couple of house tracks, and then play Saturday Night Fever, and then play Tribe Called Quest, and then it would just be all over the place.
Oh my God. So walk me through this. So you're 18 years old now, maybe 19. You're playing these gigs. Are you doing this to survive? You still living at home?
So I'm still at home, and now I'm on the circuit, and now I'm getting calls from other promoters, local promoters. Hey, can you play Nels on Wednesday? Hey, can you do Wonder Bar on Saturday? Hey, can you do this on Sunday? So I was the guy back then, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm 19 years old. And, of course, the pay was low grade. But again, I just wanted to play. I'm living at home. I don't have any bills. My bills are my records. So I'm getting paid a couple $100 to basically play music for 1,000 people and buy records. So it was great for me. I had no bills really. Like I said, I was still in high school. I remember I would do certain parties, and I was just finishing high school. So I would play and wake up to go to school.
Oh my God.
I'd be like getting home at like 5:30 and getting up to go to like school at like 8.
Your mom was cool with this?
Yeah, you know what? They were actually pretty cool. At first, they were like, "Well, what's a DJ?" They don't get it. So they kind of they were pretty supportive of the whole thing at first, and then once I started getting hired, they were like, "Hey, whatever's good, man."
Wow. I remember first hearing your name in 1996. I was in Miami. We were doing parties, 18 and over parties at a place called Warsaw, which was a gay club on Saturday nights. Had a gay party on Saturday, and I had a gay party on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And they would give the club to us on Fridays to promote 18 and over. And on Memorial Day weekend, we did not have a gig that weekend. We were bought out, or we were like, not bought out. We didn't have a party booked,
Right?
Because all the New Yorkers used to come to Miami in the mid '90s on Memorial Day weekend, and I always heard about this guy DJ Boris coming to play. There must have been like a gig that you jumped from being like the local circuit guy, the big break where you're like, okay, now I'm gonna travel and play. There must have been a turning point, or like one moment. That was like a catalyst.
So basically, those promoters were local New York promoters, the Bill Spectors, and there was a lot of other guys as well.
Yeah. I love Bill Spector.
Yeah,
by the way.
I love Bill. I know him forever. So Bill and I met at Supper Club. So he actually was the one that kind of really had the ball rolling on those big holiday parties down in Miami, at Warsaw specifically. So Bill and the Smack guys and a couple other guys from New York, they teamed up to do these big New York events. And sure enough, like, what better guy than me, because I was doing the whole New York circuit. So I was doing, all the popular clubs, and Bill got to know, we became friends. And then he asked me, he says, "Hey, listen, we're going to do these holiday parties down in Miami. You want to do them?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And it was at Warsaw, and that's how it all kind of got, came together. And then they were obviously pretty big parties, successful ones. Yeah. I mean,
that was a big club.
It was Ultimately, because of that, I was asked by the owners of Warsaw to be the resident on Wednesday nights, their gay club, their gay night.
Yeah.
Max, who was the owner back then, was like, "Hey, are you
Max Blanford?" By the way, I love Max.
Oh, we love Max. We love George. We love everybody. That whole crew
that
was great. So they had asked me to come play Wednesday nights, and sure enough, I started coming down more frequently down to Miami, which was 96, because at that point, we kind of jumped ahead, but at that point, I transitioned into strictly house.
In 96?
95.
95.
In 95, because I almost always remembered that I'm like, you're never really going to get to that level of, I don't want to say stardom or like notoriety, where you're going to play, hip hop or disco or house. So I kind of wanted to stick to one genre, and my genre, like my love, was house.
Got it.
Was so in '95 when I became the resident at Nell's,
Yeah.
that was the beginning of me playing house pretty much predominantly, strictly. And right after that is when Bill and those guys kind of approached me to do the holiday parties in Miami.
Got it.
And that's how I became the resident at Warsaw in '96 with Max and them.
Yeah.
Because obviously, the gay nights were house
Yeah.
oriented nights.
Yeah.
So
You have a very specific big room house sound, I believe, right?
Right.
And when people talk about electronic music, they label it so many different ways,
Yeah.
right? I like how you just said, I play house, man. And I just called it big room house, but whatever. But there was just something about it, right? Well, I've only heard you in massive rooms, to be honest with you.
Right.
Or big pool parties or festivals.
Yes.
Was there somebody that inspired you to take that up, or was it just by chance? Or is there a DJ, I guess, when you grew up, kind of like that? I want to be like that guy.
Yes. So my guy and my generation of jocks, and I'm pretty sure they would kind of say the same.
I can tell you're old school because you're calling them jocks.
Yeah.
Disc jockeys.
I mean,
they're
they're
jocks.
they're DJs, they're jocks, whatever. Was Junior Vasquez. So back then, the Sound Factory was the place for music, for hearing new tracks that were broken, and Junior was the guy that would break them all. So we would go to the Sound Factory, pretty much, or if I would be playing, I would wind up at the Sound Factory because it was really the after hours of New York. He would be playing 23, 24 hours. So I would wind up finishing at 4 or 5 o'clock wherever I was playing and wind up at the factory pretty much weekly. So he was pretty much the guy that was kind of like influential in my going with the big room and that kind of music and that kind of house and big rooms. And that's kind of like how it all happened for me, just by him, listening to him. And, of course there was a couple other guys as well, but for me, he was the guy that, and I've said this for years, ever since, my career, began. It was always Junior that was the guy for me. He had a certain aura, a certain way of playing records, and the music was just, it was unique. It was, nobody else did it like him back then.
Wow.
And he was kind of the guy. And he was like the New York guy.
He was definitely the New York guy.
Yeah.
I remember coming up and it's like, who do you want to hire from New York, or who can you hire from New York? Yeah. And it was always like, no, you'll never be able to book him. He's got a residency in Sound Factory.
Yeah.
He'll never leave that residency to play a gig in Miami. They don't even like house music in Miami anyways.
Right.
Unless the New Yorkers go there and dance for him,
Yeah.
I remember that vividly. So you're playing at Nell's, you're starting to do some parties in Miami. What happened next? I mean, at some point, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but the next time that we ran into each other, and besides me being a fan and going to some of those parties in the big weekends, was the Crobar parties, and that was like 06 or 05 or something like that. But before that, you also started doing pool parties too, right? Or the pool parties started right around the same time?
Well, no. Yeah, right around the same time, we started doing them. I want to say, when did we start? The Surf Coma ones?
Actually, that was probably like 08, 09.
08. Okay.
11 was the biggest one, and we'll get into that in a little bit.
So,
but in New York, though, you're at Nell's.
Back to the big room.
Yeah.
So the big room. So then I got hired to do the Roxy, which was the big room.
There you go.
So that was obviously a legendary room in New York.
Roxy in New York.
Yes,
of course.
and I became a resident there numerous times. We did parties there. We left, came back, did Big Fridays, which was the big Friday that kind of really got my name out there. You had everybody coming to that. I mean, we had thousands of people every Friday.
How big was the Roxy?
I would say capacity. It was a roller rink, so I would say capacity at least 2,500.
Wow.
But we would do
Yeah.
3,000,
That's a lot.
3,200. That's a lot.
And it was
and we're talking
it was a
like
roller rink.
roller rink. We're talking 98, 99 is like the pinnacle of the Roxy. It was a whole other level.
It was like real dance floor.
A real dance hall. So then I did that. I was the resident there for a couple of years. Then I went over to another big room, Exit.
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay.
So and we had that. And
Exit was massive.
massive. And then, in between Exit, I did Spirit, which was the old Twilo. And that's when things started to change, really. That's when I became the resident at Crobar, which was 2004. So that's
I definitely want to talk about Crobar. That's next. And I just got to bring something up. I remember seeing the Exit flyer as a kid. Okay, so, for the younger individuals who are listening to, you actually had to, back then, print flyers, pass them out, make phone calls. That's how people got to parties. That's the way you did it.
That's the way you did
Word
it.
of mouth. Now, obviously, social media, you couple pictures up, a couple videos up,
Right.
people show up. But back then, I remember as such a great marketing thing. It was when Exit was opening up. I remember seeing a black 6x9 inch postcard, and it was an Exit sign.
6x9. That was the flyer. It was big. You had to do the big ones.
It was a big one, and it just said Exit. And I was like, it looks brilliant. It was like the exit signs that you see in buildings, and then just hearing the size of it, and
it was
my
massive.
God, this place is incredible.
Thousands. It was thousands.
Couple year run there.
I want to say a year, maybe half. I want to say to 2000 to 2003. Then I went to the Limelight.
Limelight. Was Limelight the church?
The church. So I spent like maybe 8-9 months there. It was cool. Didn't really love that room too much. It was kind of like, I don't know. It just really wasn't the vibe that I was looking for. It was cool. Had its moments. Not like obviously Roxy or Exit or Crowbar, and it was cool. And then is when I went to Spirit, which was the old Twilo. Spent a couple months there, and that's
Twilo was
yeah,
legendary.
Yeah, legendary. So Junior was there, obviously, too. Yeah. So, as well as Palladium. Oh, in between there, I did Palladium runs, only as guests,
Okay.
not residency.
This was really New York City's nightclub heyday.
Yes.
The late 90s and early 2000s. Like,
It was the heyday, but the glory years was the mid 2000s. And I feel like that's just goes for Miami, New York, just the clubbing experience itself was like 07, 08, 09 was was just such a great 10 was just
electronic
was
music was just finding its way into the mainstream, but it wasn't mainstream.
Correct.
And I think that was a sweet spot because I believe we back then at Space were the first people, at least, the other people were doing it too. I'm not going to say that, but really going out of our way and just becoming about that electronic music.
Right. And booking the DJs. Because the other clubs in Miami weren't really, if I recall.
I mean, they were doing okay. I mean, look, Crobar in Miami still booked as DJs, and Shadow Lounge before Space Around booked it. The Mix had a few people.
Okay, yes.
But they weren't like, it wasn't like every weekend. It was, but neither was Space. I back then, we had residents.
Sure, yeah.
And then guests would come every other week or so,
mm-hmm.
or once a month, and then it just exploded. I think, right? But you're right. That was a sweet spot. You and I were talking before here that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but one of the mega clubs. My experience in New York was not very vast, but I was part of the Crobar team in Miami when Crobar New York opened. And I saw the school of turning a big room into a mega club in New York, and you were a key role in that. You had some pretty monster nights, and that was a great residency. How'd that come about?
So, funny story. So Kenny, the owner,
Yeah.
he would party a lot. He would come to a lot of my events. And at that point, I was doing a lot of events with Rob Fernandez.
Rob, God bless.
We love Rob. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Rob. I love Rob Fernandez.
So
man.
we would do an Assateria at, Cheetah, discotheque, a lot of different underground parties. Him and I would we be doing together. So Kenny would always, he would be a frequent visitor.
Yeah.
You know, we became kind of cool. We had similar friends. His partners were good friends with myself. Tommy Marinelli was a partner in Crobar, New York. You know, basically was just like, and at that point, Kenny was kind of like in charge of that whole of booking the DJs and doing all the pretty much everything in New York. But again, he wasn't from New York. He was a Chicago guy. So he kind of didn't really understand the optics of New York City and how it works and who's in the crowd and the DJs and the this. Oh, well, he had a specific resident that he wanted.
Yeah.
And he kept him there on a weekly basis. And, you know, when you're not really, how can I put this? Not really that tapped into the New York underground scene, ain't gonna work for you. I mean, you could book so and so and try to go after the fashion, you know, elite crowd, and it wasn't happening. And Crobar was a dead room for months. So Kenny, pretty much after hearing a lot of people chirping his ear, came to me. We had lunch. I remember, literally down the street, right from Crobar, and basically was just like, came to me. Can I be honest?
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah.
I mean, so he basically, we were one-on-one, and I was actually playing in other clubs as well, like with Rob and Spirit across the street. And all the DJs were playing across the street as well. So they were getting big crowds.
Yeah.
So I was the first that he met with. And he was like, looked in my face, and I'll never forget. And he goes, baby, come save my club.
Gotta love him, dude. You gotta love him. But just, you know,
I mean,
that's him.
That's him.
That's him.
That's him.
Baby.
And you know, with his Kenny laugh, and I love Kenny's great. And you know, on a sarcastic note, obviously. So, and we knocked out a deal right there and then, one-on-one. And I at that point put together a whole group of, you know, a team, my team, which was led by John Paul, obviously.
Love John Paul.
Who's been working with me for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
You know, we've had Dennis amongst Eric Hortense, another instrumental
Love
individual
Eric Hortense,
who's been, you know, there since
Saw him
day
the
one.
other day, by the way.
Yeah.
I see him every so often.
So, you know, we put together a group and we did our first event. And I remember we did 3,200 people at me.
I remember.
3,200 people on our first night there. And it was over. It was rest is history. And they wanted me to play every week. And that wasn't going to be the case because I just wasn't going to do that because I had other priorities with Rob. And I wanted to play other places. You know, back then it was just, I wanted to kind of be, you know, expand, so to speak.
Of course.
So I didn't want to be tied up to just one nightclub. So I started doing twice a month, every other week.
Yeah.
And that worked. And then from there on in, we kind of got to an understanding. Let's do once a month. Let me get more money.
Yeah.
Let's make it bigger and make it more like theme parties, monthly theme parties, whether it's the jungle party, the beach party, the recovery party, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Sure enough, I mean, we had some monster nights. I mean,
I was reading somewhere online, it was like 4,500 in and out one of these days.
5,200 was the biggest night we've ever had. It was, I remember it was written in, what was the magazine? Club Systems.
Okay, Club Systems.
As one of the top events of all time. It was like a top 20 event. We did 5,200 people. It was a classic night. I played for probably, that was my like real, like I played till like 3, 4 in the afternoon. It was so crowded that the security what was actually carrying the waitresses from table to table. You couldn't move there, and Crobar was a massive.
It was a massive room.
venue.
Is it still around today? That room?
No,
Did they knock it down and put a building there?
Yeah, there's it's a hotel.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I remember that room. It was so magical. I've been to a couple of your parties there. I remember seeing Tiesto there. I've seen quite a few
Yeah, everybody.
people in that room.
So that kind of like actually opened the doors for a lot of other DJs to start playing there. And
Yeah.
sure enough, everybody kind of went and started playing the Crowbar. They left the place across the street
Yep.
and came across the street, and everybody started playing there.
I
And then-
remember. I would take flights from Miami.
Yep.
I'd catch a 9 p.m. flight, land there around 11, grab a quick bite to eat, party, get back on a flight, come straight home. And no hotel room, no
Used
nothing.
to hear that story, tons of stories like that, constantly. Constantly. People from Miami would always fly in for Crowbar events, especially ours.
Yeah, of
We
course.
would have massive events. Back then, again, you had a handful of guys. You had the Tiestos, the Carls, the what. They were doing their thing, and Danny's was pretty big.
Yeah, Danny was really big in the early 2000s. Like really, I mean, he still is.
So they were, a lot of people were, but it was still kind of new, fresh. DJs, the whole thing. Everything was still kind of growing with oh man, we got to go see so and so or this one. And that was the room that really, like, I feel like gave a lot of DJs in New York the opportunity. Obviously, Pasha took it to another level with Rob and his relationships, of course. But Crowbar was the room of New York City, and I felt like it was the glory years of nightlife in New York. I mean, those other clubs were great. The Roxys and the Exits and the Nels and all these clubs. But if you speak to your average clubber, New York clubber, Crowbar, Pasha, it's like, I mean, that's the glory years of clubbing.
Yeah.
Just like Miami space.
I'm so happy to have been born and experienced that whole culture and that whole timeline. Listen, when you had Crowbar, that's when you started then continuing to come to Miami, because I remember you doing events, not only at Crowbar Miami, I think you did a few, we did Nocturnal.
Mm-hmm.
This is now like
07. Yeah, 07. 07. Yeah. So the Nocturnal event was 07, where I played for 22 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember.
I still actually feel it. I still got the calluses.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's anyway. That was the longest time I ever played. Was 22 hours in Nocturnal during music conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started, obviously became the resident at Crobar, New York. So I started doing events in Miami as well. We used to do all the holidays. Some of the big nights, like the big holiday weekends of like Columbus Day or 4th of July. And so, that kind of enabled me to get to know the Miami scene a little bit more, you guys, and that's how that led to us.
I remember your first, I want to talk, because then you diversified. You started doing the pool party.
Oh,
I remember, I think you did your first Get Wet with
Sagamore
or Shelbourne?
Sagamore first year. I remember because I actually, a friend of mine was the GM. So I had contacted him. Hey, would you be interested in doing a pool party during a music conference? Yeah, let's do it. Great. Okay. Sure enough, put him in touch with JP, the whole crew, worked out a deal. And it was, the Sagamore's not that big.
No, it's not.
So we crushed it.
Yep.
And then we did the Shelbourne.
Then you went to Shelbourne.
Were you at the Shelbourne?
And we did a couple parties at the Shelbourne before I did. I did a couple parties at the Shelbourne in early 2000s. And then in 2003, we went to the Surf Coma and did parties at the Surf Coma for 17, 18 years.
Yeah. And 15 with us, right?
Yeah, well, I remember specifically because I didn't know about the Sagamore one, but I remember you guys doing the party at Shelbourne.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, we need that party. It'll be much better here. We're bigger. We got promotional power. Mm-hmm. Like it could be a better thing to do together.
Right.
And I remember shortly after, 1 or 2 years, it was like, you guys, I mean, we got to have you.
Yeah.
It was
a magical era. All our parties there were so massive, and it couldn't have been a better fit with us.
Yeah.
You know, our group from New York, you know, whether it was, you know, our crew and you guys, and we combined our efforts and we made history in Miami. I mean, those parties.
You know, the pool parties were going on. I worked really well with Rob back then too, because I saw him as essentially my counterpart in New York.
It's exactly.
And he was loved by everyone. He threw great parties. He was reasonable. He would do events at Crobar. We would do pool parties together.
Mm-hmm. Nocturnal.
And we would just do different things together. And it was nice to have, let's call it a colleague from another town, come into town. And I always looked up to him in a way, because here's this guy with these amazing DJs, and they come in from out of town and they pack your places here too. That was it opened my eyes to how big yet small the world is, where you could take groups of people and really push them in and help tailor their vacations.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, man. And the fact that just looking back and reflecting on this, it was really a special time, seeing all that happen and the growth trajectory that happened after that.
I mean, we had massive events. I mean, you know, again, like teaming up as a group, it couldn't have been a better team ever.
Yeah, it was great.
Us, you know, me playing, John Paul, Rob, Dennis, this one, that one, our New York crew. Then you had Emmy, Lewis, so-and-so, everybody from, you know, it was just, I mean, that's the glory years.
Alex Holmes, God bless.
I mean, Alex was a big part of our success. And he was a big Boris fan and and obviously he was, you know, the talent buyer at Crobar as well.
Yeah.
So he was a big instrumental part of me being the resident in New York, along with Eric, because him and Eric were really close. And the three of us went to Ibiza together in 2003. And Alex and I, we just, you know, back then, the hotel rooms were just, you know, so hotel rooms and the beds were together. Yeah. So me and Alex would share a room, and it would be like, so we became super close back then. And at that time, he was telling me, he was like, I'm starting this festival, Ultra, and I'm going to be and I'm the talent buyer at Crobar. And I'm like, great, yeah. He goes, and I want to get you to be the resident in New York. Sure enough.
Yeah. And oh, man.
We had some.
He was my partner in the pool parties for all those years. And I remember, you know, how about this? The most memorable pool party extravaganza was in 2011. I'm going to maybe kick it forward a little bit. In 2011, we decided to do 2 weeks worth of events.
Remember.
It was 2 weeks worth of events. Electronic music had blown up.
Right.
We had a week 1 and a week 2. And week 1, you played on Saturday at the Surf Comer, and we did over 5,000 people that day. And it was the busiest day the Surf Comer has ever had. To this day, I know that no other, like, it's been the biggest. And then the very next week, I remember you guys being very upset at us because we had Swedish House Mafia on the sand in Miami Beach. And John Paul was so pissed. He's like, I can't believe you put us on the same day as Swedish House Mafia. He was giving me such shit.
And they were tremendous back then.
They were
the biggest.
They were the biggest. They were the biggest. They were the biggest, and that show did, 15,000 plus people. It was monumental. I could talk about that show for hours. You guys had your party at the same exact time. And I'm like, I closed my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. These guys are going to get fucking crushed. We're going to get crushed because we took obviously a big risk on that day. You guys fucking slammed it also.
Yeah.
Like, it was still incredibly busy, super successful. And it's like, oh my God, you just got to believe in Boris.
and so back then, and not just that doesn't just go for me because you guys did the whole week. I mean, it was just me, and as a DJ, and then or If you had Sunday, it was just
You had, like,
one guy.
yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple of guys, for support.
Yeah,
that I
great
would
guys
always,
to support you.
to
Louis and a couple other guys.
but as the years progressed, we gotten bigger guys. We had Hot, we had this one, we
Yeah.
had that one.
Yeah.
Almost every possible big DJ played Get Wet. Along with me.
Yeah.
So as the years progress, obviously you
beach
need
balls, everything.
yeah.
My God.
So I mean, back then, you didn't need eight
DJs.
headliners
No.
to pack
Just
a
you.
place. Nowadays, you need 8, 5, whatever the number is, to realistically have big nights like that, because those kind of nights, they don't really happen anymore. I mean, 5,000 people with one headliner?
No,
It's almost
look, I mean, there's very few people that were able to do that in that era. You were one of them. Oscar G is another one I thought did it really well as a resident, and also as consistently in Miami, being able to do it. Looking back, I also think, I don't know. Do you had a specific movement? You and John Paul, you guys also created like these Believe parties. Was that a part of the Crobar events?
Yeah, I mean, was
that like a series of events?
So it actually came on the first night of our Crobar event. So Mike, who was the light guy as well as the tech guy at Crobar, so we had a ticket, a ticket, like a thing that goes around where it says, like, it would just spin around with like red lettering and just like
Well, those things you would wave around. It had the letters, the digital letters. Inside.
yeah. I mean, it would, but it was wrapped around like the lighting booth. So
like a ticker. Yeah.
like a ticker, exactly, like the stock exchange ticker.
Yeah.
So he basically just put one day, Believe in Boris, and sure enough, we just looked at it and he was like, "Wow, that's it."
Oh my God.
So Mike D, who was the light guy at Crobar,
Yeah.
was the one who was responsible for the whole Believe movement. So we kind of just started branding that as doing Believe events, and sure enough, the rest is history.
Oh my God. So eventually, the parties now you're firing them full cylinders. You're crushing it in New York. Miami's taking off. We'll get into the Miami versus New York thing, or New York versus Miami, or what's better about each place later on. But eventually, what drew you into Miami? Because now you call this home, right? Like, I think in New York will always be home for you too. I think.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
But you actually have.
I have 2 homes.
Now you have 2 homes, but you really got drawn into Miami. What was it?
I've always loved Miami. So even before I was a DJ, I used to come down here like when I was 16, 15. Again, those same friends that used to take me out to all the clubs in New York used to get in their cars and drive down to Miami to party, whether it was Liquid, whether it is, there's so many, you mentioned one of the other room where, what's his name, David Padilla played.
The Mix,
Mix,
Shadow Lounge.
Not too much Shadow Lounge, more Liquid, more the Mix and some other like underground spots. And I just kind of it was different though. The Miami scene was different. It was a little European.
back then.
It was Europeans. It was a lot of models. It was a lot of like very European back then. So it was different than the whole New York like scene. But ultimately, it all kind of like, the whole culture of Miami, the scene started progressing as well, and I started getting into that and by playing those holiday parties. And, Miami, the weather, the this, the that.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt,
I
guess.
Yeah, the whole, the whole atmosphere, so it was, that was a big part of it. And by then I started playing in all different rooms around Miami Beach. Yeah. So it's kind of like Miami, New York. So it's kind of like.
And I remember that back and forth. And then Pasha opened up.
Yes.
Now, Pasha, I remember when it opened up, it was like, first of all, Pasha to me is still to this day, I regard it as the best nightclub brand that's ever existed.
Right.
right? This thing's been around 50, 60 years.
I will not disagree.
You know, and say what you want. And anything that's around for that long has its ups and downs. But it's the most beautiful nightlife brand that exists.
60 in the 60s, right?
Yeah, in the 60s. So it's 60 plus years, right? They make the big move of opening in New York. I remember hearing Eric Murillo, God bless him. He's going to be a partner. You have Rob, you have Eddie Dean. You have these true nightlife veterans there doing their thing. And eventually, Boris makes the move.
Again, the first guy to jump ship back then, because I jumped ship to Crobar. So I spent 3 years there. 2004 to 07 was Crobar. Close to 08, about 3.5 years. And sure, everybody knew once Pasha opened that I was going to go because of my relationship with Rob.
Yeah.
You know, Rob and I, we known each other, I mean, since I was a kid. He was a ticket taker at Sound Factory Bar. So we met years ago, and we were friends, and we kind of like, you know, hit it off. And of course, back then, before Pasha, remember we were doing a ton of parties together, whether it was Music Conference 07 and Nocturnal, whether it was, we would do conference every year together. So it was inevitable, you know? And so my relationship with him, whether it was doing Assateria for all the years, countless other venues and parties. So it was just, it was inevitable. So of course, Rob came to me and he's like, couldn't say no, really. Couldn't say no to him, you know, and Eddie, who was a big, you know, was pretty instrumental as far as well, you know, because I knew him from Brooklyn, actually. He was a bar owner in Brooklyn. He had a bunch of bars in Brooklyn, and I played for him.
No way.
He was just a regular Irish bar owner, and I played at his bar a few times, so he kind of knew me from back then. So he didn't, you know, he looked at me like, oh, that's Boris, the guy who plays in my bar, as opposed to now, oh, that's Boris now. Yeah. I gotta pay him now.
He's no longer open format Boris.
Right.
Oh
so anyway,
God.
so I, you know, sure enough, we signed a deal to go to be the resident at Pasha, and we took everyone over, the whole crew, and I was the resident there for 8 years. And at that same time, Lewis came to me. You guys came to us, and I became the resident at Space.
Yeah, man.
Literally was like a simultaneously.
It all worked out roughly at the same time, man. I remember that like it was.
Oh wait.
08 was a tough time in the economy, the housing crash. Everyone that was spending money was doing mortgage fraud. Like, you know, everyone was into like all the big tables were like a little shake. So is how do you survive? And it's like, okay, who was the best guy out there moving people right now? And your name was at the top of that list. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget those parties.
A funny story for you, Emmy. So I'll give you a Lewis and a Boris story. So he hated Glenn, the owner of Nocturnal. He couldn't stand the guy. He wanted to do everything possible to close Nocturnal. And I was there at that point for what? I don't even know, 5 years?
Yeah.
I was doing events for years, you know, Fridays. And so he would just try to get me to come. I was in Miami and I was getting on a flight. And sure enough, I'm sitting in first class. Who strolls in? Louis Pugh.
Oh my God.
Sits right next to me. And at that point, he was like, you know, we were pretty cool. We were, you know, come work, come play at Space, come play at Space, come play at Space. So I was going to play in Vegas from Miami. So he sits literally next to me. Literally next to me in first class.
The stars aligned.
The stars aligned. And sure enough, after that trip, I became the resident at Space.
God. Forced meeting. He could. Oh my God.
I'll never forget it because we had an ongoing joke for years. Because on American Airlines flights, they would actually serve you the peanuts, the hot peanuts. So we made a deal over hot peanuts.
There you go. Oh my God, that worked out great.
It was great. Yeah, nah. So yeah, that's.
Do you remember where you were playing at Vegas?
I was playing at an after. No, I was playing at the Drink.
Okay.
The Drink, which is a club off the kind of like the not in any of the hotels. It's not there anymore, obviously, but I remember playing. So I used to do the holiday parties in Miami,
Yeah.
and I used to do the holiday parties in Vegas,
Yeah, in Vegas.
and New York. So it would be
So
the
all the
gauntlet.
New York, yeah, everyone from New York would go to either Miami or Vegas.
That's it.
That's like
On the Memorial Day,
Memorial
4th of July,
Day. Well,
Labor
Memorial
Day.
Day when Memorial Day in South Florida became a little more urban. That New York crowd
That was
you
after,
appeal
though.
to
Yeah.
started going to Vegas.
Yes,
And
correct.
Those pool parties and those big
Correct.
parties.
The Wet
So,
Republics and
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
I used to do for
Rehab
years.
and-
Yeah.
yeah.
So I did them all. So that was so on a 5-hour flight, Lewis and I had a pretty good, interesting conversation over some peanuts.
Something that maybe your New York friends would want to get your perspective on. Crobar versus Pasha. Which was a better room?
So I spent 3.5 years. They were both great, phenomenal in their own way. As far as room, there was not a better room in all of New York, and I visited them all. Played them, majority of them, whether it was the Roxy, the Palladium, the World, the Tunnel. There was not a better room that was built as a nightclub than Crobar New York.
Why?
The dance floor, the sound, the lighting, the big room feel, the kind of like you would just like do a whole lap around and just kind of go. It would just go around the whole entire, like it was just you could go into the balcony and overlook the whole dance floor. You could go to the penalty box, which is a place downstairs
Yeah.
where you could kind of hang out. It's like the VIP, but you're still on the dance floor and you're still amongst like the party people. You could go in the DJ booth where you probably fit 100 people. There was a party in itself back there.
Yeah.
Then you could go in back of the DJ booth where you could be like a private party. Then you could go around the club, through the tunnel. There were numerous different rooms. It was like it was clubs in a club.
It was.
It was.
It was. I remember
it was
walking
such
through
a
that
fun-
white tunnel.
Yep.
Of that white tunnel that it was like a portal. You just got.
We had this ongoing thing. Once you enter that tunnel and you feel that sound and you see the lights, it was nothing like it. And to this day, and I've been to many venues all over the world, and to this day, it's still such a magical room. It was so like when it rocked. That room was,
It was a special room and a special moment in time.
Yes. Pasha was great in itself because, it was that dark, big room feel,
Yeah.
underground, and,
It felt big, but also underground.
yes.
Which is tricky because underground places aren't really big.
Again, you could kind of get away. You had the mezzanine, which was in back of the booth, where it was kind of like the VIP, and everybody wanted to get back there.
Yeah.
And it was not easy, because it's like VIP tables, this, that, the other thing, and whether it's sound, lighting, the vibe, just the room itself was tremendous. It had its different like it was different than the big room Crobar. It was big room, but yet underground and smaller.
Yeah.
Like you didn't need the 3,000-4,000 people.
No.
If you had two, you couldn't move in there.
Yeah.
It was rocking. So
Yeah. That was. I went to a few events there also, and it was intense.
it was intense.
It was
It's
intense.
a great way to put it.
It was intense.
Like 4 or 5 o'clock.
And a good team too. I think the team that Rob and Eddie had assembled there. I forgot one of the ops guy, the head ops guy.
You had Andrew.
Yes, there was I believe it was Andrew. It was they were great guys.
Great.
They knew they were pros. They knew what they were doing, and I got to know them when they would come down to do the pop-up pool parties and the Pasha parties with us.
Yep, and the Pasha parties here.
We could talk about clubs forever, and maybe we'll do a part 2 on that. But real quick, in the club world, was there someone that was a mentor of yours, or that helped you out big time along the way, that maybe gave you a break, or somebody that's like, thanks to this person, I was given XYZ opportunities.
So yeah, I mean, instantly Rob comes to mind. Like I said, we've done a lot of countless events. We became very close friends. We did many amazing events, and he gave me that opportunity to play on the Sundays at Cheetah, which was a real underground party, real underground, and a crowd that I was never exposed to. So Sundays, you had straight, gay, trannies, black, white, Spanish. You had everything. It was just a melting pot of freaks. This one, that one. It was. I mean, so he gave me the opportunity to kind of He exposed me to that crowd. Gave me the residency there to play there monthly, and that's how I became kind of more or less his guy, his DJ that he would book on a lot of the big nights, the big holidays, conference that led to a lot of New Jersey, the Jersey Shore events at Surf Club or Neptunes or in the Hamptons. I mean, those parties itself, we did tons of parties together there. I mean, he was kind of because he was the guy back then in New York, you know what I mean? This is before I got kind of.
He'll always be the guy.
Yeah, I mean, he'll always be the guy. I mean, there'll never be another Rob.
There never will.
I would have to say he gave me the shot of having me play it for a different audience as opposed to a certain audience I was kind of playing mostly for. He kind of opened me up to a different audience to where and it worked and sure enough. Then this is way before I got connected with anybody else who worked with me on my team, whether it's a John Paul or whoever, Dennis or whatever.
Yeah.
Rob kind of gave me that shot in New York to and let's be real, he gave a lot of people shots.
Yeah.
A lot of DJs.
Yeah.
A lot. New York, I mean, whether it was me, whether it was Eric, whether it was Danny, whether it was whoever, Avicii. I mean, you could sit here and give him a whole list.
Absolutely.
Of DJs in New York that he gave breaks to.
Rob, you mentioned Junior. There's somebody in your team that I love, by the way, and I just got to bring him up and give him a shout out. And that's John Paul. That's John Paul, because as we continued working together, you and I dealt a lot with John Paul.
Yeah.
And I can't say enough great things about him. I think you picked a winner there. He's doing really well now.
Yeah, he's doing great. He's got a couple of dispensaries in New York. He's killing it. He's crushing it.
Is he still throwing parties?
He throws parties. We do parties here and there, but he's concentrating on the dispensary thing, and good for him. As you can't just sustain the being just kind of concentrating on one thing, whether it's just throwing parties. In this day and age, it's you gotta
do different things.
You gotta do other things.
Especially as we get a little older.
Yes, correct.
Right? You gotta wear a couple different hats.
Yes, the crowds are not there anymore. Those people are kind of the pool party people, the old school space people, posher people. They got kids, they're married, they're older.
Different wavelength.
It's a different time.
They're not the weekend warriors that are every single weekend.
No, it's a different crew.
You've talked a lot about New York. We've talked a lot about Miami. If you were to throw the biggest party of your lifetime again, where would it be?
I would probably. How about this? I would go from Crobar to Space Miami.
Oh my God.
When we were there.
Oh my God.
I mean, we've had legendary parties there, our Halloween events, our conference parties. I mean, again, I was the resident there for you guys for 8 years. Yeah. Just when as long as I was the resident at Pasha, it was 2008, I became the resident at Space Miami.
Yeah.
By working with you guys. So I would do Crobar, Space, and then end it off the following week at Pasha.
Okay. There you go. That's a good one. So you couldn't pick
I would.
one or the
Yeah,
other.
no, I couldn't.
You couldn't. You couldn't.
I just had so many memorable, amazing, incredible moments that I'll live forever. That I just nobody could experience. Nobody could kind of tell. I've had these moments, magical moments. Let's call them.
Speaking of magical moments, what are your 3 most memorable gigs that you've ever played at, where you have to say, "Oh my God," and just soak it in and take it in?
All the pool parties were.
Give me 3 specific,
another
like,
level.
oh my God.
I mean, there was a couple of pool parties. The 5,000 person pool party was, incredible. The 5,200 person party at Crobar was insane. I mean, I did some massive 10,000 people events at Roseland on big holidays. Okay. Like a Thanksgiving Eve. I did like some other events, during the course of the year. They had thousands, and I'm just like, wow. Amazing birthday moments, really, really big birthday events at Pasha. Yeah. Really big ones where we would do, 4,000 plus. I would be playing till noon. Those kind of stick out to me because those are the, I've played in so many venues all over the world.
Thousands of gigs, right?
Hundreds and thousands of gigs in countries, in Japan, in Korea, in Europe. There's nothing like the home base crowd.
Really?
There really isn't. And that's just my opinion. Like, the love that you actually receive from your hometown, whether it's New York or me playing in Miami, because Miami's home as well.
Yeah, of course.
It is nothing like it, and still to this day, like this past weekend, I played 13 and a half hours in Brooklyn.
You played 13 hours this weekend?
I did.
Holy shit.
13 and a half. I started at 3 a.m. and I finished at 3:30 p.m. the next day. I played at this place, 96 Morgan. It's an underground after hours event.
No.
It was insane. Emmy, by the way, it felt like I was just like, wow. It took me back to like,
oh my God.
Yeah. So it's been a minute since I've done that.
But by the way, Brooklyn's on fire.
Brooklyn's on fire. So we do a lot of events there, whether it's Silo, which is another great club I play at, or 96 Morgan, or just countless other venues that we do now. And it's just, it went by because everyone, including John Paul, was like, how's your backfield the next day? I was like, surprisingly, I was fine.
Oh my God.
I was fine. I started at 3. I looked at my watch. It was 10. I was just like, 10 o'clock. Where? And then I had to go upstairs to play the day party till 3:30 p.m. So it was 2 different venues, one downstairs on the underground room and one upstairs for the day party that went all the way throughout the whole day.
Oh my God.
Yes. Got home at like 5 o'clock. I was just like, what happened?
Oh my God. Well, first off, kudos to you for being able to do that. That's fucking tough. Listen, I want to touch up on 3 other things here. We've been talking a while. You and I ran into each other a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
This will be, when this airs, it'll probably be another few weeks from now or 30 days from now. But you and I ran into each other a few weeks ago. 25 years of Space. What do you think of Space today?
So I always kind of, when people ask me, what do you think of Space now as opposed to when you were there? So Space, when I was there, when we were there, it was raw. It was like a family thing. It was like, there was no bells and whistles. It was the club, the sound, the crowd, and just a party. Like, there was no, to me, it's corporate now. It's gotten a little corporate, like not in a bad way, because they're doing great and the parties are great and everything is great, and it's just not that family environment that we had where you knew everyone there and everybody would come, as opposed to like, it was the Miami scene was Space when we were there, and it was raw. It was like a family thing. We just like I'd come there. I knew every security guard, every bartender, every so and so, every this one, even the bathroom attendant guy.
Yeah.
As opposed to now where you just come, it's corporate. It's really corporate. It's that to me. I mean,
They're doing serious numbers. I guess
serious numbers, and so
Yeah.
they've taken it a notch.
Yeah, they're taking
You
a
know,
notch up.
a notch.
Yeah, they've listen. I don't knock it. They're doing a great job over there. You said you went to a party there recently, and it was like,
Yeah, I went to during Music Week. I actually went to Solid Grooves there, and it was something out of a movie. In all the years that I played and all the big events during conference and even recently these past years, I have yet to see like how it was that particular night. I mean, the line was going literally 2 blocks down. I was just like, what's going on here? And inside you couldn't put another body. But again, they kind of made they kind of made the VIPs a little smaller as well. It seemed like. But,
I don't know.
I
mean, I walked in there. It felt the same, but
it felt the same, but it wasn't. Yeah.
I don't know. I hadn't been there in 8 years.
No.
And it was nice to go in and see everyone and see the place and see a Buddha that I brought from my house is still sitting there in the main bar. 20 something years later.
Wow.
It was nice to reminisce. I'm on a different wavelength now personally, but it was nice. It was nice to run into you that day, see Ali and Sharam, and of course Lewis, and
it was a bunch of people from back in that era that came out.
Yeah, it was nice, and
listening to Lewis play.
Yeah, look, it was nice also for those guys to reach out. I thought it was pretty cool, and it felt good to see everyone again and just check in and keep it moving.
Right.
COVID came around, things got a little scary in Miami. And you did something not a lot of musicians and entertainers do. You diversified in a really cool way, and you started a business that is crushing it right now. Supreme. Tell me about it.
So during COVID, obviously clubs were closed. Nobody was traveling. Nobody was playing music. It was illegal to be in venues, and if you were, you would be,
something. You're a super spreader.
Super spreader. He called everything under the book and this and that and yada yada. So anyway, since I've had a home here since I was the resident at Space, which is for 16 years, I started more or less coming down here more often. So by coming down more often, there was not much to do here. There was not really much to do but to go on the water in Miami. And yachts and water and it's hand in hand.
I mean,
you
know how to pick the careers, man. I mean, you went from being like the guy dancing in the room and the music and the party to let me get into the yacht business.
The yacht business. So I actually was introduced to a mutual friend. We bought a small boat. Didn't really work out. Got rid of it. But we got into boating and I thought, I was like, what am I gonna do? I gotta pivot. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna make money. Like, who knows? And it was a few years since clubs opened up and whatever. So I was like, I gotta do something and quick. So I connected with a specific person. We got a boat together, a small boat, a 24-footer. Started doing charters. I was like, hey, I could do this. I have a network that's deep. People will come into Florida.
Yeah, especially
in Miami when it was the only thing that was open. So everybody was coming down here. So what were they doing? Going on boats. Mind you, Emmy, I never liked boats. No. I would get asked to go on boats constantly.
You feel trapped.
There you go. So I'm like, nah, I don't want to go on boats. I feel trapped. I'm this, I'm that. I want to get off this, that. I don't really like boats. Sure enough, got into this small boat. Started dabbling with the charters. Got rid of it. Connected with a couple of boat owners, yacht owners. they would ask me to come on their boats, hang out, this, that, the other thing. So I said to myself, hey, can I broker your boat? Can I? Yeah, sure, no problem. Sure enough, kind of got into doing that as a side hustle, brokering yachts for my couple of the friends I had who had their boats, and they were crushing it during COVID. I'm talking printing money, printing it. So I'm like, all right, let me try this. I'm like, and sure enough, everybody started calling me from New York. Hey, you got a boat? Yeah, I got you. No problem. So I would actually rent those yachts to certain people that would come down until I decided, you know what? I'm going to buy my own. I don't want like anyone to dictate, we're busy, we're booked. This is the time you could take it. Oh no, you can't do this, you can't do that. So I said, you know what? I'm doing this myself. Found a boat. It was Supreme 1, 60-foot azimuth. Crushed it with the boat, and got another one. Crushed it more, and now we got a third.
Amazing.
So now we got two 60-foot azimuths, 155-footer, and yeah, man, we're doing pretty well. I mean, the company has grown. It's grown as to one of the.
Where do you have the boats?
Miami Beach Marina.
You're at Miami Beach Marina.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get a slip there, man.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah.
But at least you're getting. I mean, that sounds like a dream. Let's not call it job, but business.
It's a great business, and again, I only look at it and I consider it as an extension of my music career because people go on boats. People. I have my DJ set up. I have everything there. We do big events. I do all kinds of parties. We did a whole big thing during music conference. We do during Basel. Again, it's an extension. It's not like me pivoting from music to corporate.
Yeah.
It's still hospitality. People want to go on boats. It's just an extension.
Wow. I mean, when you're back in New York, early 2000s, doing the club thing, you would have never thought you would have been in this business.
I never even liked boats. like I mentioned, people were like, come on the boats. I'm like, boats? I'm like, no.
I think that's very inspiring, man. I think you went from being a DJ, superstar DJ, traveling the world, playing the big rooms, orchestrating the experience for all your fans and everyone attending these venues and these parties. And you've been able to pivot into entrepreneurship and being a businessman. Now, usually the path of entrepreneurship is not a straight line. You've had to have had some hits along the way, some failures, some hard-earned lessons. Is there anything that you could share with our listeners today that's like a big hit that you took and how you got through it?
To be frank with you, COVID was a big hit. During my years of DJing, I mean, I didn't know anything else. Like I'm saying to myself, what do I know? What can I do? And as I mentioned before, we talked about this earlier, that you cannot just do one thing unless you're a handful of DJs, big guys, whether it's a Carl or Tiesto or whoever, Summit, whatever. Most guys need to have multiple incomes. And I hear it from multiple DJs and they're doing it because there's just no way nowadays that, it's a different era. A lot of venues are closed, a lot of promoters are gone. It's a different time. Crowds are different. So you're not getting as many gigs as you used to. So you got to pivot. As you mentioned.
Reinvent yourself and pivot.
Exactly. Don't get me wrong. I still play.
I mean, you just played 13 hours.
Yeah. I mean, again, we still do events, not as often, but we do them, where I used to, play maybe 15, 20 events a month, maybe a handful now, which is still okay, but again, I got
15, 20 a month?
At least during the Pasha era, I used to I probably 2-3 times a week, maybe 4.
Playing gigs. Let me ask you a question, and back to the DJ thing.
Yeah.
And I hate to jump back and forth, but you just brought this up and it's coming to mind. Everyone thinks that being a big DJ is all glory and glam. And obviously there's parts that it is. But if you're playing 5 gigs a week, 4 gigs a week, different cities, it's 20 gigs a month. It's not easy and it's not glam.
No, it's not. So you got to you're going from city to city. The traveling part could get quite annoying, which I didn't mind so much. But some of the gigs aren't great. You're doing them. You're coming off a great Pasha gig, and then you're going through a city in, I don't know, Philadelphia or wherever, and you're playing for 50 people. It's not that. And don't kid yourself. It happens a lot with many DJs, big or small, or whatever it is. It's just
not everything's a home run.
Not everything's a home run. Not everything is space.
No sleep.
No sleep.
Living out of a suitcase.
Not the greatest food. You're eating at airport food or whatever, hotel room service. You're going from city to city. Like it's not glamorous, as you said. Don't get me wrong. If the gigs are great, it's one thing. But the flights are delayed or whatever. The food or the hotel accommodations aren't. I've been to, I've gone to from New York to a great gig to like Mexico City in some, ratchet hotel room with roaches. It's like, I got to tell you, man.
Yeah, it's not that glamorous.
It's not that glamorous. Again, certain guys it's different.
You sacrificed a lot to follow your passion.
That's it. And as far as like during COVID, like getting back to your question, it was a tough time, and I was really searching like what am I gonna do? Like and don't get me wrong, some lessons I learned by getting my first boat. Got contractors not showing up, contractors robbing you for certain money, saying that they're doing this or that, boats breaking down. It's not easy. It's not easy having big yachts because it's like owning buildings.
Yeah, they're just floating.
The maintenance alone, I don't got to tell you.
Yeah,
it's costly.
Yeah.
So, but it kind of all worked out. I learned some lessons during the last 4 years. Because that's how long.
It's been 4 now, yeah.
4 years since we had Supreme.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's.
Are you going to continue growing it?
Yeah.
You're going to acquire some more?
Yeah, we're gonna working on getting a bigger boat now as well, like an 80+ footer.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
80's nice.
80's nice.
80's nice. You keep them local, or do you take them to the Bahamas?
We've taken a bunch of trips to Bimini, to the Bahamas, Bimini, to the Keys.
Nice.
So we kind of but for the most part, we keep it local.
Yeah, I'm sure it's better business too because you just get more.
The turnover is much better. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, now you've clearly still playing and crushing it. You're an entrepreneur and a businessman. What's next?
What's next? To continue playing. Continue to grow. Just continue. I don't do it so much for like I need to make the money. I do it for love and the passion out playing. That's why I love playing so long. Still, it's just in my blood. It's just I guess when you grow up in New York,
yeah,
you have that like, or maybe even in Miami too. Like guys like Oscar also would do, did long sets at Space as well. So, it's part of the culture, and of course to grow with Supreme as the company. And working on a whole bunch of other different ventures. Can't always be stuck on one thing.
No, man, you can't.
Well, otherwise, life will pass you by.
It is. Time has flown. I can't believe I've known you for 20+ years. Oh. We have so many friends in common. We're dear friends. And I can't, looking back and sitting here with you, I reminisce at all the good times we've shared, some of these amazing parties and just seeing like this, and then all of a sudden you turn around and I'm behind you in the DJ booth, and they'll hug, and then you see a sea of people, and you just you go back to that moment in time. It's like, man, this is.
I'll always remember me playing and you across at the loft.
Oh yeah,
having the drinks and shots,
Yeah.
and John Paul and you and this one and everybody knew where to find Emmy.
Yeah, I had my spot. It was hidden. It was, but I could see the entire room.
Yes.
You could see the entire room and appreciate it and be a part of the action, but also be able to have conversations with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy having conversations with people. Boris, as we begin to wrap this up, is there anybody or anything you want to give a shout out to that's either helped you along the way or anything to the listeners that you may want to?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people. There's countless of people, of course, the Robs, the John Pauls, tons of others, the Alexes, the Lewises, the Emmys, of course. I mean, the Luis Diaz. There's so many people throughout my career that have been influential and been a big part of my life and my journey.
Yeah.
Journey. It's a good way of
It's
putting it.
not the destination. It's the journey, man.
It's the journey, because it's been a journey, and I've come from the kid playing in my house at 16 to 34 years later, still doing it.
Talk about 10,000 hours to perfect the craft.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
you're like 100,000 in.
It's a skill set where where you learn, you learn things, you learn how to become a professional at your craft, a DJ. Not just about playing music and the right tracks. It's about telling the story.
But if you wanted to pass one thing on to the new generation that's maybe just starting DJing or just getting into it or exploring it, or they're thinking about getting their first mixer, anything you want to maybe share to somebody that's maybe giving it that?
I would say just to keep it, keep going after it. Like, cause I went after it. Like, I sat there 7 days a week and practiced 2 hours, 3 hours a day until the neighbors complained, and just until I broke down that door and got that first shot, and just keep grinding. Keep grinding, man.
Yeah, that's for damn sure.
Right? Well.
Yeah. Boris, I've really enjoyed going back in time. It's been very, I don't know what the word is, nostalgic.
Nostalgic. There you go.
Just having these conversations and seeing you talk about Crobar, Pasha, Exit, Warsaw,
Space.
Rob, Space,
The
obviously
Believe brand. I mean,
brand,
it's
the
just Get Wet.
I mean, we've touched on so much stuff. Thank you for bringing all those memories forward in my mind, and hopefully a few people that listen to this thing can reminisce and smile, man, because that's all you got is the journey that we've
That's
taken.
it, man.
That's
it, man. Thanks for having me, brother.
I appreciate you spending time over here. Good luck with Supreme. If anybody needs to get a yacht charter out there, go check out Boris's Supreme Yacht Charters. He's out of Miami Beach Marina. He's got an amazing fleet of azimuths out there. Great personal service. You got chefs, caterers,
Everything.
DJs,
drinks,
DJs.
I mean, the whole, again.
You could do it all.
You could do it all.
You could keep it in Miami, or you could go longer distance
That's
if you
it.
had to.
That's it.
Boris, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys for tuning in. See you next time.